Rain hit the windows violently. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from realization. Jae-Hyun Kang stood behind me, too close, too calm, too aware. "Your heartbeat changed," he said softly. I didn't move, didn't breathe. "Was it when you realized," his voice dropped lower, "that I already know who you are?" My chest tightened, because if that was true, then I wasn't the hunter. I was the one being studied. If this kind of dark love story pulls you in, go ahead and subscribe now, because what's about to happen between Amara and Jun-ho, it only gets worse. 3 weeks earlier, Director Han never called me unless someone was going to die. This time, it was different. "You'll be killing a king," he said. No greeting, no warning, just that. I sat across from him, silent. "Jae-Hyun Kang," he continued. Even the air felt heavier hearing his name. "He doesn't trust easily. He doesn't forgive. And no one who has tried to get close to him has survived." I tilted my head slightly. "Then why send me?" Han smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Because you don't exist." That sentence lingered. No past that can be traced, no identity that holds, no emotional attachments. He leaned forward slightly. "And most importantly, you know how to lie without blinking." I held his gaze, unshaken. "Is that what this is?" I asked quietly. "A test?" His smile faded. "No, Amara." A pause, a shift in tone. "This is your last assignment." That hit differently, not because I was afraid, but because Han never used the word last unless something else was attached to it. "What happens after?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately, and that silence told me everything. "You still haven't told me why," I said. Han studied me carefully, like he was deciding how much I deserved to know. Then finally, "Because he has something that belongs to you." My fingers twitched slightly. Dangerous. That statement was dangerous. "I don't have anything," I replied. Han leaned back, calm, certain. "Not anymore." That was the moment I should have walked away. But I didn't. Because deep down, there was a part of me that needed to know what he meant. And Han knew it. He always did. The Kang Group building didn't look like a place where people died. That's what made it worse. Everything was clean, controlled, perfect. Men like Jae-Hyun didn't operate in chaos. They created order and buried bodies underneath it. As I stepped inside, something felt off immediately. Not danger, recognition. The receptionist looked at me, paused, then smiled. "You're expected." That word again. Expected. My instincts sharpened instantly. I hadn't even met him yet. And already, something wasn't going according to plan. Seo Yuna didn't try to hide her suspicion. Her eyes scanned me like she was peeling layers off my skin. "You don't look nervous," she said. "I don't get nervous," I replied. A small pause. Then, "That's usually what liars say." I almost smiled. Almost. Because if she looked any deeper, she might actually find something. The door opened, and the air changed, not metaphorically, physically, like the room itself adjusted to him. Jae-Hyun Kang stood facing the window, still, silent, waiting. He didn't turn immediately, didn't acknowledge me, which meant one thing. He already knew I was there. "Leave," he said calmly. Yuna hesitated, just for a second, then walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, and just like that, it was only the two of us. A hunter and a target. Or at least, that's what I thought. Slowly. He turned, and the moment his eyes met mine, everything in me went still. Not fear, recognition. Like my instincts were trying to tell me something my mind hadn't caught up to yet. He walked toward me, unhurried, controlled, every step deliberate. Then he stopped, right in front of me, too close. His gaze dropped slightly, taking in everything, not in desire, not in curiosity, in assessment, like he was confirming something. Then finally, he spoke. Amara Cole. My name sounded like it belonged to him. And then he tilted his head slightly and smiled. Not kindly, not warmly, but knowingly. Tell me. His voice was quiet, dangerously quiet. Was it difficult, getting past my security? My heart didn't react, but my mind did, because that wasn't a normal question. That was a test. And I had just walked into it. And as I stood there, holding his gaze, one thought settled in. Cold, sharp, unavoidable. This man wasn't trying to figure out who I was. He was waiting to see how long it would take me to realize that he already knew. He didn't ask me to sit, so I didn't. Silence stretched between us, not awkward, measured. Jae-Hyun walked past me slowly, not circling, not pacing, studying. You don't look like the others, he said. I kept my expression neutral. Others don't make it this far. A pause. Then a quiet chuckle, low, amused. And what makes you think you have? He asked. That wasn't a question. It was a warning. I turned slightly, just enough to face him again. Because I'm still standing here. His eyes lingered on mine, too long, too intense. Then he stepped closer, again. Every instinct in me sharpened. This wasn't normal proximity. This was deliberate. You're confident, he said softly. Confidence is useful, I replied. Confidence gets people killed. His voice dropped on the last word. Not threatening, certain, and then he reached out, not fast, not aggressive, slow, controlled. His fingers brushed against my wrist, and everything in me locked, not fear, recognition, because that touch wasn't random. He was checking my pulse, and he knew exactly what he was doing. Steady, he murmured. His thumb pressed slightly. Either you're very well trained, a pause. His gaze lifted to mine, or you're hiding something. My breathing didn't change, but something deeper did, because this man wasn't interviewing me. He was peeling me apart. Sir. CO Yuna's voice cut through the room as she stepped back in, sharp, controlled, but her eyes went straight to where his hand still held my wrist, and something flickered. Not jealousy. Alarm. She hasn't been cleared yet, Yuna said. Jae-Hyun didn't look at her. She's cleared, he replied calmly. That was too fast, too easy. Even Yuna noticed. With respect, she pressed. We don't know anything about her. Finally, he let go of my wrist, but not before his fingers lingered, just slightly, intentional. You don't need to, he said. Now he turned to Yuna. I do. Silence, heavy, uncomfortable, because that wasn't reassurance, that was ownership, and I hadn't even agreed to anything. You'll work directly under me, Jae-Hyun said. My eyes narrowed slightly. That wasn't the position listed. A small smile touched his lips. I changed it. Of course he did. Yuna stepped forward slightly. That's not protocol. Jae-Hyun didn't even look at her this time. Neither is questioning me. That ended it. Yuna went silent, but her eyes, still on me, still watching, still calculating. Good. She should be, because if she wasn't, she wouldn't be a threat, and I needed to know exactly who my threats were. Later that night, I stood alone in the hallway outside his office, going over everything. Too many inconsistencies, too many moments that didn't make sense, expected, the pulse check, the way he looked at me, like I wasn't new, like I was familiar. That wasn't normal. That wasn't safe. The door behind me opened. I didn't turn immediately. Thinking too much can be dangerous, his voice said. I turned slowly. He was closer than I expected. Again, always too close. I prefer being prepared, I replied. And yet, he stepped closer. You walked into my world without hesitation. Our eyes locked. There was something in his gaze now, not just control, curiosity. You didn't ask enough questions, he added. I got the answers I needed. Did you? That question hit differently, because suddenly, I wasn't sure. There was a shift. Subtle, but undeniable. The air between us grew heavier, not just tension, something else, something dangerous. You're not afraid of me, he said. It wasn't a question. I don't scare easily. A small pause. Then, he leaned in slightly, close enough that I felt his breath. You should. My body didn't move, didn't react, but my heart skipped, just once, and that was enough, because his eyes flickered. He noticed. Of course, he did. Tell me something, Amara, he said quietly. Why this job? Too direct, too sudden. I needed work. A lie. Clean. Simple. But he didn't respond immediately, which meant he didn't believe it. People don't come here for work, he said. His voice dropped again. They come here because they have nowhere else to go. A pause. Or because they're running from something. His eyes locked onto mine. Sharp. Unforgiving. Which one are you? The question hung between us, heavy, because for the first time, I didn't have an answer ready. And as I stood there, trying to hold control, I felt it, for the first time since I entered this mission. Something slipping, not my cover, not my focus. Something worse, my certainty, because the more he looked at me, the more it felt like I wasn't learning anything about him. He was learning everything about me. And I didn't know how much time I had left. Before he decided I wasn't useful anymore. I have an event tonight. His voice came from behind me again, always behind me, always where I couldn't predict. I didn't turn immediately. I wasn't told I'd be attending events. You weren't, Jae-Hyun replied calmly. A pause. Now you are. I turned slowly. He stood a few steps away, dressed in black, clean, precise, untouchable. Why me? I asked. His gaze held mine. Too steady, too intentional. Because, he said quietly, people reveal more when they think they're watching someone else. That wasn't about the event. That was about me. You're making a mistake. Seo Yuna didn't bother lowering her voice this time. We stood alone in the hallway. You don't know anything about her, she continued. Jae-Hyun adjusted his cuff slightly, unbothered. I know enough. No, Yuna snapped. You feel enough, and that's worse. Silence, sharp, dangerous, because she wasn't wrong, and that made her more dangerous than I expected. Yuna turned to me, stepped closer. You should be careful, she said softly. Not a threat, a warning. The way he's looking at you. A pause. Her eyes hardened. Isn't safe. For a second, just 1 second, something in me reacted. But I buried it, because I didn't have time to feel anything. I was here to kill him. The car was silent, too quiet. City lights blurred past the window as we moved through Seoul. Jae-Hyun sat beside me, not speaking, not moving, but his presence filled everything. You're thinking again, he said. I didn't look at him. You talk more than you should, I replied. A soft exhale, almost a laugh. And you observe more than you admit. I turned slightly, our eyes met, close, too close. You still haven't asked me the right question, he added. What question? A pause. Then, why I chose you. That again. I held his gaze. Why did you? Silence. And for the first time, he didn't answer immediately, which meant this mattered, because you walked in like you already belonged. His voice was quieter now, less controlled, more real. And people like you, he tilted his head slightly, don't appear by accident. My chest tightened slightly. Not fear, recognition, because he was right. I didn't belong in places like this. I was trained to survive them. And somehow, he saw that. The room was filled with power. Men in expensive suits, women with calculated smiles, everyone pretending, everyone watching. Jae-Hyun didn't introduce me. He simply placed his hand lightly against my lower back and walked in. That single touch changed everything. Heads turned instantly. Whispers followed. Because this was new. He didn't bring people here. And definitely not like this. "You're drawing attention," I murmured. "That's the point," he replied. Of course it was. Everything with him had a purpose. Everything was calculated, even this, especially this. "Who is she?" The question came from a man across the room. Not curious. Suspicious. Jae-Hyun didn't answer. Instead, his hand pressed slightly more firmly against my back. A signal. Stay close. Stay controlled. "I decide who stands beside me," he said calmly. That ended the conversation, but not the attention. Because now, everyone was watching me. And if even one person recognized something, this mission would end right here. "Relax." His voice was low, right beside my ear. "You're too tense." I hadn't realized it. But he was right. My body was rigid, focused, ready to react. "People will notice," he added. And then, his fingers moved slightly, tracing just enough along my back to shift my posture. Subtle, but intentional. And for a split second, I forgot why I was here. That was the problem. That was the danger. Across the room, Seo Yuna watched. Not the crowd, not the deals. Me. Her eyes narrowed slightly, because something didn't add up, and she could feel it. She turned, pulled out her phone, and walked away. That was it. The moment everything started to unravel. The cold air hit my skin as I stepped onto the balcony. Finally, space, silence, control. "You're trying to escape." I didn't turn. I needed air. Or distance. He stepped beside me. Close again. Always close. "Do you always analyze people like this?" I asked. "Only the ones that interest me." That word. Interest. It lingered. Dangerously. "And I interest you?" I asked. A pause. Then, he turned slightly, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes that wasn't just control. Something deeper. Something real. "More than you should." My breath caught, just slightly. And again, he noticed. This wasn't part of the mission. None of this was. I was supposed to get close, gain access, complete the job, not feel anything, not hesitate, not look at him like this. Because the more time I spent near him, the harder it became to remember that I was supposed to kill him. And as I stood there, with the city glowing beneath us, one thought hit me, sharp, unwelcome. If I stayed any longer, if I let this go any further, I wouldn't just fail this mission. I might actually choose him, and that would destroy everything. "Come with me." No explanation, no context. Jae-Hyun didn't wait to see if I'd follow. He already knew I would. That was the unsettling part. We drove in silence, not to the city, not to anywhere public. This part of Seoul was quieter, darker, forgotten. "Where are we going?" I asked. "A meeting," he replied. Too simple. Everything with him was always too simple on the surface. The building was abandoned, no lights, no guards outside. But inside, I could feel it. Presence, men, weapons, danger. This wasn't a meeting. This was something else. "You're tense again," he said as we walked in. "I don't like unknown variables." A pause. Then, "You are the unknown variable." That answer stayed with me, because for the first time, I wasn't sure if he meant it as a statement or a warning. Inside, a man was on his knees, bruised, bleeding, barely conscious. 2 guards stood behind him. The air smelled like iron. Violence had already happened here. "Talk," one of the guards said. The man shook his head weakly. "I already told you." His voice cracked. "I don't know anything." Jae-Hyun stepped forward, calm, unhurried, terrifying. "You stole from me," he said quietly. The man froze. That alone was a mistake. A pause. "But lying about it," Jae-Hyun tilted his head slightly, "is insulting." No anger. That was worse, because anger meant emotion. This was control. Then Jae-Hyun turned to me. "Amara." My body stilled. "Finish it." The room went silent, heavy, unavoidable. For a second, I thought I misheard, but his eyes told me everything. He meant it. "You want me to kill him?" I asked. "Don't ask questions you already know the answer to." My chest tightened, not because I couldn't do it, but because this wasn't part of the mission. This wasn't clean. This wasn't controlled. This was personal. I stepped forward slowly. The man looked up at me, desperate, pleading. "I didn't do anything," he whispered. That was a lie, probably. But it didn't matter, because in that moment, I wasn't an assassin on a mission. I was being watched, tested, measured. I could feel Jae-Hyun's gaze on me. Not impatient, not doubtful, certain. Like he already knew what I would do, and that was what broke something. My hand moved, steady, precise. The blade pressed against the man's throat. His breathing hitched. "Please," he whispered. For a second, just 1 second, I hesitated, and that was all it took. "Do it," Jae-Hyun said softly. Not a command, a push. And then, I did. The body dropped, and just like that, the room changed, the air, the tension, everything. Because now, I wasn't an outsider anymore. I was part of it. Good. That was all he said. Good. Like I had just passed a test. Like a part of me he expected had finally revealed itself. I didn't look at him. Couldn't. Because if I did, I wasn't sure what I'd see in his eyes. Approval or recognition. Back at the building, Seo Yuna stared at her screen. Files, records, fragments of identities. And then she saw it. A match, not complete, but enough. "Amara Cole," she whispered. "That's not your real name." Her expression hardened, because now this wasn't suspicion anymore. This was confirmation. "You're quiet," his voice again, behind me, always behind me. "I'm thinking." "About him?" A pause. "No, a lie." And he knew it. He stepped closer. Then, without warning, his hand reached up and tilted my chin slightly toward him, forced eye contact. "You didn't hesitate as long as I thought you would." My breath caught. Not because of the words, but because of how close he was. Again, always too close. "You expected me to fail?" I asked. A faint smile touched his lips. "I expected you to lie to yourself longer." That hit deeper than anything else, because it was true. "You're not like them," I said. "Neither are you." Silence, sharp, heavy, because in that moment, something shifted, not just between us, inside me, because the line I had been holding onto, the one that separated me from this world, was gone, and he knew it. And as I stood there, still feeling the weight of what I'd done, one terrifying thought settled in. I came here to kill him. But the longer I stayed, the more it felt like he wasn't turning me into something new. He was revealing something that had always been there. And I didn't know which was worse, becoming his enemy, or becoming exactly what he wanted me to be. Would you still trust someone after this? Subscribe, because this story is far from over. I didn't sleep, not because I couldn't, but because every time I closed my eyes, I saw him. Not Jae-Hyun, the man, the one on his knees, the way his voice cracked, the way my hand didn't. I sat at the edge of the bed, still, awake, because something had changed. Not around me, inside me, and I didn't know how to undo it. You learn fast, Her voice came from the doorway. I didn't turn. Or maybe, she stepped in slowly. You already knew how to do that. I looked at her then. Seo Yuna wasn't hiding it anymore. The suspicion. The certainty. You've been digging, I said. I've been confirming. A pause. Then, she dropped a file on the table. It slid slightly before stopping, right in front of me. Go on, she said. I didn't move immediately, but when I did, when I opened it, my chest tightened, just slightly. Old records, fragments, burned identities, faces that used to belong to me, names I had buried. You're not a recruit, Yuna said quietly. Her voice wasn't sharp this time. It was controlled, focused. You're trained. A pause. Very well trained. I closed the file slowly. And yet, I said calmly, you're still not sure who I am. Her eyes narrowed. No, she said. I'm sure. A step closer. I'm just waiting to see if you'll admit it. You should leave. That was new. Coming from her, unexpected. This place, she continued quietly, doesn't let people like you walk away. I held her gaze. And what kind of person am I? A pause. Then, the kind that makes him change patterns. That hit, because I had seen it too. The way he moved differently around me. The way he watched me. The way he focused. You think this is about him, I said. No, Yuna replied. Her voice dropped slightly. I think this is about what happens to people who get too close to him. Silence. Because that sounded like experience. You're both tense. His voice cut through the room. Effortless. Like he had been listening the entire time. Yuna stepped back slightly, but her eyes stayed on me. Watching. Waiting. Jae-Hyun walked in. Calm. Untouchable. What's going on? He asked. A simple question. Too simple. Nothing, I said. Something, Yuna said at the same time. Silence. Sharp. He looked between us. Then he smiled. Not amused. Interested. I see. That was all he said. But it was enough. Because somehow, he already understood everything that had just happened. Come with me. Again, no explanation. No room to refuse. And again, I followed. Because despite everything, I still wanted to understand him. That was the mistake. Yuna doesn't trust you. We stood in his office, alone. Smart, I replied. A small pause. Then, she's not wrong. That got his attention. I saw it, the shift. Subtle, but real. And what is she right about? He asked. I held his gaze, careful, measured. That I'm not what I appear to be. Silence. Heavy. Because that was the closest I had come to the truth. And somehow, it felt like I had said too much. He stepped closer. Of course he did. Always closing the distance. Always removing space. And what do you appear to be? He asked quietly. A mistake, I said. That wasn't planned. That wasn't calculated. That slipped. And the moment it did, his expression changed. Not control, not dominance. Something else. Something softer. You believe that? He asked. His voice was different now. Lower, less guarded. And that was more dangerous than anything else. I don't believe anything, I said. That's not true. A pause. You believe you have to finish what you start. My chest tightened, because that felt too specific, too personal, like he wasn't guessing anymore, like he was seeing. You don't know anything about me, I said. A lie, and we both knew it. Then tell me, he said. Soft, dangerous. Who are you, Amara? That question lingered, not because I didn't have an answer, but because, for the first time, I didn't know which version of myself was real anymore. And as I stood there, looking at him, one terrifying realization settled in. I wasn't just losing control of the mission. I was losing control of myself. Because somewhere between the lies, the tension, and the way he looked at me, I had stopped being the person who came here to kill him and started becoming someone who didn't know how to leave. Before I tell you what Jun-ho discovered that night, make sure you subscribe, because once you hear this, you won't look at her the same way again. It started quietly. Too quietly. That was the first sign something was wrong. The building felt different. Still, no movement, no voices. Even the guards were gone. I walked through the hallway slowly, every instinct in me alert. This wasn't normal. This was controlled silence. And in places like this, silence meant one thing. Something had already happened. Yuna? No answer. Her office door was open, lights still on. Her desk, disturbed, files scattered, one drawer half open. I stepped closer, and then I saw it. The file. The same one she showed me. But now, it wasn't incomplete. It was full. My real name, my past. Everything I had buried was laid out, exposed. My chest tightened. Because there was only one way this could happen. She had found everything. And that meant she had told him. Amara. His voice echoed from behind me. Calm, unshaken. I didn't turn immediately, because for the first time since I met him, I didn't know what I would see when I did. Come, he said. Not a request, never a request. The room was darker than usual, minimal light, shadows stretching across the floor, and at the center, Jae-Hyun, seated, composed, waiting. You've been busy, I said, my voice steady, even now. A small smile touched his lips. So have you. That was it. That was the moment everything shifted. Because that wasn't curiosity. That was confirmation. You read it, he said, not a question. Yes. A pause. And, he asked, I stepped forward slightly. You already knew. Silence. Then, he stood, slowly, deliberately. Say it, he said. My heart pounded once, hard, but my voice didn't break. You knew who I was. A pause. His eyes locked onto mine, cold, sharp, certain. I knew what you were. A step closer. Before you even walked through my door. The world didn't spin. It didn't collapse. It just stopped. Because suddenly, everything made sense. The way he watched me, the way he tested me, the way he chose me. None of it was random. None of it was coincidence. I was never investigating you, he continued. His voice was calm. Too calm. I was confirming. The same word Yuna used. But this meant something else. Who sent you? The question hit like a blade. Sharp. Direct. I didn't answer. Couldn't. Because if I said his name, everything would end. Jae-Hyun tilted his head slightly. Then, he smiled, and that was worse than anything else. Victor Hale. My breath stopped. Because I never told him that. Never hinted. Never slipped. And yet, he knew. He sold you a story, Jae-Hyun said. He told you I was the enemy. A step closer. But he didn't tell you why he really wanted me dead. My chest tightened. Why? I asked. A mistake, because now I needed answers, and he saw it. He's not your handler, Jae-Hyun said quietly. A pause. He's your creator. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. Because deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to face it. Everything you are, Jae-Hyun continued, was built by him. My hands trembled slightly. Not from weakness, from truth. And you came here. His voice dropped. Softer, more dangerous. Thinking you had a choice. A pause. You didn't. Then why didn't you stop me? I asked. My voice broke. Just slightly. For someone who knew everything, a step closer. Why let me get this close? Silence. For the first time. He didn't answer immediately, and that scared me more than anything. Because I wanted to see. He stepped closer. Close enough that I couldn't breathe properly. If you would choose differently. My chest tightened, because suddenly, this wasn't about power. This wasn't about control. This was something worse, something real. You failed your mission, he said quietly. A pause. But not in the way you think. My heart pounded. Then how? I whispered. His gaze softened. Just slightly. You didn't kill me. A step closer. But you also didn't leave. Silence. Because that was the truth. The one I couldn't escape. And as I stood there, everything exposed, everything broken. One final question echoed in my mind. What happens now? Because the man I was sent to kill already knew everything. The man I was starting to fall for was never a victim, and the truth I had been running from had finally caught up to me. Jae-Hyun stepped back slightly, creating distance for the first time, and that felt worse than when he was close. Now you decide, he said, his voice calm, unreadable. Finish what you came here to do. A pause. Or find out what happens when you don't. Silence. Heavy. Unforgiving. And as I stood there, caught between love, lies, and the truth I could no longer escape, I realized something terrifying. This was never about killing him. It was about choosing who I was willing to become. If you were Amara, what would you choose? Kill him. Or stay? Part 2 drops soon. Don't forget to subscribe.